Are you listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or any other platform where you can leave a rate or review? Do you like what we're doing? If the answer to all of that is yes, please consider quickly giving us a 5-star rate. And if you wouldn't mind leaving us a nice review, we greatly appreciate that as well. Okay, let's do this.
Hello, welcome to the Ghosts of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 328 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin. Today we'll be discussing chapter 56 of A Dance with Dragons, which is the Iron Suitor.
And as always, we're going to chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you, unless of course you have a Buy Me a Coffee Sustainer tier that includes spoilers. Well, then we are going to spoil things for you, but regardless, hopefully we'll provide you some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the television show, indulge in a little pedantry, and cover some relevant news and listener correspondence. Be sure to check out the show notes. They'll provide some additional information about the characters and geography of this chapter. How are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. I'm having a little bit of withdrawal that I can't watch niche sports throughout the day and the week with the Olympics having
Is this a Winter Olympics thing?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I watched almost exactly none of the Winter Olympics.
Oh.
But you may remember that I whine and complain about NBC's coverage of the Olympics.
Yes.
And the little tiny bit that I watched really confirmed my suspicion. I was watching a curling match between I don't know and I don't know. No, I do remember. It was USA against Germany.
Okay. Yeah.
And I watched one end of it, and I was like, I was watching it on Peacock, so this is kind of like it's on demand. I mean, this was not live; it was after the fact. So the thing about curling is, I really like curling as a sport, but you could trim it down a little bit. You don't have to rehash the whole thing, and you could give me because basically the first 5-6 stones of the end are kind of meaningless. It's the last bit that matters.
Yeah, I've discovered that this past few weeks.
Right. So, But the thing is, they don't do it. They don't trim this down and show you the trimmed down highlights of the thing. They regurgitate the whole game. But worse than that, that's not completely unforgivable. That is their choice, and they've decided to show the whole thing. And I bet there are curling purists out there who are saying, Simon, you are wrong. It matters so much what those first couple of stones do. Yeah, whatever. But we watched an end, and it was, it ended the way it did. The last stone was the most critical, but the hammer won the end.
Right.
And then we went to the next end, and the score hadn't moved. And I was like, well, maybe if you're the hammer and you only get 1 point, you don't get any points, but you get to keep the hammer. But it turned out that their editing had accidentally put the same end in again. And I watched the whole thing again. And it was only when I turned the commentary up and I was like, wait a minute, they just said all this. That I realized I was rewatching the same thing. And I did not lean on the zapper. This was them. Their editing had managed to put the same end in twice. And then
wow. That's bad.
We went to ski jumping, the big jump.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Exactly the same thing. I'm like, I'm watching it and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that Japanese guy is going to come up just a little bit short.
Sure enough.
And the next thing you see is this Japanese coach just head in his hands like, oh no.
If only you could place bets in that regard.
I know. So yeah, I completely confirmed all my worst suspicions. The coverage is abysmal.
Yeah, well, I enjoyed it. I spent a lot of time, I work remote, so I could have the TV on in my office while I was watching it. While I was working. And I watched a lot in the evenings.
That's what he meant, Castellarius.
I watched a lot in the evenings and the weekends. But for instance, the commentary of the curling, it took me quite a while to figure out what was happening. I was basically basing my assumptions of what was happening by the reactions of the curlers. If they put their hands up in excitement, okay, well, someone did something good. If they looked disappointed, well, that didn't go the way they wanted. And the commentators were speaking as if I knew what was happening, not explaining, hey, this is what just happened here. And I was like, most of the viewers are, I think, in my camp. I don't know what's happening. I didn't know what that little hammer. It took me forever to figure out what that little hammer going back and forth between the teams were.
The other thing, and this maybe is just me being oversensitive, but the commentary is like from the 1970s. Yeah, I lost count. I could tell you, I did see some women's curling too, and I knew. So there'll be 8 women taking part, 4 on each team.
Yeah,
I knew whether any of those 8 women were mothers before the end of the first end that I watched, because they listed whether or not they had babies, and it was like, do you do that for the men?
Is that relevant somehow?
Is it even remotely relevant? I was like, good God, get a tiny bit of enlightenment. You know what? I kind of get that in a more physical sport. You know, if you're like downhill skiing and you've just had a baby, kudos to you. But it's curling.
Well, they got to sweep and push.
You could literally be pregnant, and it would make no difference. You could be 9 months pregnant.
To my untrained eye, I would agree with your assessment.
So yeah,
real curlers might say no, that's not possible. But
yeah, that's probably true. I
don't know. Anyway, how about you?
So,
what's up?
So I'm trying to get back to fitness. My shoulder is healing, and I'm trying to get back to fitness. So the other morning I went to the gym before work, which you know I'm a big fan of that. And normally I don't expect to hear anything from Carson before noon, but she sent me a text while I was on a bike thing in the gym. I don't know what these things are called, but I was riding a bike thing, and so I sent her a picture back of there was a mirror in front of me of me cycling in the gym, and I said, I'm at the gym, and she, within 5 seconds, so no kind of like, oh, I've got a funny zinger I'm thinking of here. This is just her immediate response. She said, are they giving out free samples?
There's no other reason you could possibly be at the gym right now.
I was like, good God, that's just mean, lady. And no, they're not. I would have been here had they been. But actually,
you get lost.
I have another Carson story from this week. So, I was bad mouthing my wife to a coworker.
Uh-oh.
Yep.
Shouldn't
do it.
That's risky.
Let me tell you, shouldn't do it. Now, I will say it was a Teams meeting, so I was looking at my computer and I was talking to this coworker, and I wasn't really bad mouthing her. I was just describing, sort of like something going on in our lives that, was causing friction between me and Carson, but I really wasn't bad mouthing her. But while I was saying this, I have a picture of Carson on my desk, and it fell off the desk.
She's watching.
I know. I told Carson this happened, and she said, well, you should think about what you're saying.
Don't tempt the fates.
Exactly. So, yeah, a little bit scary, that one.
Uh-huh. Well, I got to see my nephew this weekend.
Oh, yeah,
Technically last Friday evening.
Famous podcaster, right?
He does do podcast stuff, but most of his stuff is YouTube, like video type based.
Worse still.
But this, he is doing, he's on his North American tour right now, city to city, and he was in our town, and I got to, Stacy and Molly and her friend and 2 of our friends got to have dinner with him before his show, and that was really cool. It was good to catch up, so...
Have you got the dates for our North American tour yet, Mackelly?
I'm working on it.
Okay.
I'm trying to fit it in between our day jobs.
Yeah. Of watching the Olympics, yeah.
Yes. Right. But yeah, it was nice. I don't get to see him very often. Hadn't seen him in like a year and a half. So it was nice that he was here in town and got to hang out for a bit. We stuck... The show was... I enjoyed the show, actually, quite a lot. But it started at 8. And I assumed it would be done by 9:30, maybe 10. But as the clock passed 10 and there was a break, Stacy and the wife of the pair of our friends that were with us had to Uber home because our dogs had been alone for more than 5 hours, and they needed some TLC. But the rest of us stayed until after 11 o'clock at night. And I'm even on a Friday night, I'm just too old to be out and about at 11 o'clock at night. But, I wanted to see him, tell him, talk to him about the show afterwards. So
yeah.
We stuck it through. But, man, there were times my eyes were at half-mast at best.
When you get to our age, it's tricky. It reminds me, I've probably said this before, one of my absolute favourite jokes from 30 Rock was when Tina Fey was dating a younger guy. And he said to her, "I'll pick you up at 10 o'clock." And she said, "At night?"
That would have been my response, too. Yeah. But it was a good show. It was good to see him. It's called, the tour is called Channel 5 Carnival. So if anybody's interested, check out and see if it's coming to a city near you.
Did he mention us?
He did not. He should.
We should
I know.
talk to this guy.
Reciprocal, right?
Exactly, yeah. All right, well, let's get down to business. How do we leave the Iron Suitor? Well, the last we saw of Victarion Greyjoy, for 'tis he, was in a chapter back in Feast for Crows, so a long time ago, when he was reaving off the Shield Islands in the mouth of the Mander. His hand was wounded in a fight to the death with Sir Talbot Serry. He was winning the battle for the Iron Islands, but Euron got the glory. He clung on to the other brother, Aeron Damphair Greyjoy's, promise to remove Euron from the Seastone chair because he wasn't a righteous man. Euron charged Victarion with heading east and bringing back Daenerys to be Euron's wife. Victarion can have the Iron Islands. Euron and Daenerys would take the Iron Throne. Victarion had other ideas. He said, "You stole my wife, now I'll steal yours." Mackelly, why don't you give the summary of this one?
Okay. Victarion Greyjoy watches from his flagship, the Iron Victory, as the Grief limps into the Isle of Cedars. That swells his fleet to 54. He'd left Westeros with 93, but those numbers belie the fact that some of the 54 are made up of smaller cogs and fishing boats that they captured along the way, which are no real substitutes for the lost warships. Storms and foul winds out of Valyria, according to Ralph the Limper, who is convinced that the whole trip was a cursed suicide mission concocted by Euron to rid himself of Victarion.
Victarion shares that belief, but slaps Ralph twice, once for losing ships and the other for talk of curses. The ships at anchor are overrun by monkeys who hoot their derision and throw their scat at the Lord Captain of the Iron Fleet. He questions where the drowned god's help is. Perhaps they've sailed beyond his dominion. He wishes that Damphair was here. These doubts he confides only to his tongueless concubine.
He decides that the fleet is as big as it's going to get and calls for them to set sail on tomorrow's evening tide. One ship to remain to direct any stragglers. He knows that he must reach the Dragon Queen before the Volantines. When they stopped in Volantis, the whole city was cheering their new triarchs. All the talk was of the riches coming the city's way once the Dragon Queen was dead. Victarion imagines there's 300 to 500 ships that'll make up the Volantine fleet. He can only hope they suffered a similar fate as his fleet due to the same storms.
The math is not encouraging. On top of the Volantine fleet, there's already an armada of ships from various cities floating outside of Meereen. Against this force, he has the 54 ships. Victarion keeps his eyes on the prize, the most beautiful woman in the world, or so says Euron, whose word could never be trusted. Regardless, he will find the woman and take her as his wife. He's come too far to turn back now.
Victarion settles into a chair, and his dusky woman, his tongueless concubine that he keeps confined to his cabin, unwraps his injured hand. The woman was a gift from Euron. Beautiful but mute, Euron having removed her tongue. Victarion wants none of his brother's leavings, and he planned to toss her overboard, but so far he hasn't gotten around to it. She's now his confidant as she can't tell his secrets. He speaks of his wisdom for splitting his fleet into 3 groups to sail the summer sea, based on size and speed, as Maester Kerwin enters.
Victarion has little patience for the grey mouse, as he calls Kerwin. The man was forced upon Victarion again by his brother Euron, having taken him from Lord Chester when Euron sacked Greenshield. The Maester had been beaten and raped by the men since their journey began, but was too timid to defend himself. Kerwin slices into Victarion's left hand, pus spilling forth, and digs until he reaches blood, then cleans away the pus. When he's done, Victarion sends him away. The woman will bind the hand.
Victarion remembers the fight clearly. His shield destroyed, he fended off Sir Talbot Serry's attack by grabbing the longsword. But the man was a knight and highborn. Victarion can't imagine he'd stoop to using poison. Yet the wound won't heal. Could the maester be poisoning him? Victarion's ponderings are interrupted by word that the Vole, the captain of the Grief, has brought a wizard aboard. They picked him up floating in the sea.
The Vole introduces the wizard as Moqorro. This wizard is a mountain of a man with skin not just dark but jet black. His face shows slave tattoos in the form of flames. The man denies being a wizard, just a humble slave of R'hllor. Victarion figures he must be a gift from the drowned god. Victarion asks why the Vole called the man a wizard. Because he knows things. He knew we were headed for Slaver's Bay. He knew you would be waiting here on this island, and he said you would surely die if we did not bring him to you.
Cut his throat and throw him overboard, he begins to say, but a sharp stab of pain from his left hand halts his words. The men want the wizard killed, but Victarion now refuses. He leads Moqorro into his cabin. The dusky woman hisses at the sight of him and receives the back of Victarion's hand for it. Victarion wants to know the manner of his death. Will it be in battle? No, your death is with us now. Show me your hand.
We'll be right back.
Hello, friends. Are you ready to make some unforgettable memories? Well, if so, consider the Marriott Bonvoy program. Discover the perfect destination for your summer getaway and unlock exclusive deals on luxurious accommodations. With our affiliate partnership, you'll enjoy unbeatable savings and a seamless booking experience. Don't let summer slip away. Visit Marriott Bonvoy today and make this vacation season one for the books. Use our Ghosts of Harrenhal affiliate page to check it all out and buy Bonvoy points or give some as a gift. The link to our page is in the show notes.
Victarion is surprised. How could he know of his damaged hand? He'd seen Victarion in his night fires, stern and fierce but unaware of the black strings that made him dance. Moqorro says he can heal the wound, but it will be painful. Victarion tells him to do his worst, but if he fails, Victarion will have him killed. From the deck, the men hear mad laughter and a high wailing song in Old Valyrian. That evening, Victarion emerges on deck. His hand is charred and black smoke rising from it. He points to Maester Kerwin. Cut his throat and throw him into the sea. It will bring us favourable winds all the way to Meereen. He thinks to himself that Moqorro has seen it all in his flames. The priest has also seen that the queen has wed. It is no matter. She will not be the first woman he's made a widow.
Well, that's certainly true, I'm sure.
No, that's definitely true. Yes, it's very much so. It's quite a lot of chapter for not much motion. Because as we started to write the notes for this one, we were like, wow, not much has happened here, really. I noticed that a whole block of the chapter was given over to the way they ended up at 54 ships. You know, it was kind of like they started at 93, they lost some in the storm, they captured some, they lost some more, they captured some more. It was like, okay, we get it. We get that This is like not your original boats that you've got here. But it is important because 53 sounds like a pretty decent fleet for most situations. But if it's 30, 35 of his battleships and 20 fishing boats, that's not so great.
That's true. Yeah, it does matter what the math is, what the makeup is of the total ships.
I think the point of the chapter, though, is probably just to develop Victarion a little bit more, because I guess he's destined. I mean, he's a not named but POV character. This is not the first time he's been a POV character,
right?
But not named yet.
That's right. Yeah.
So maybe he's destined for a bigger role in the story. I mean, if he gets to Meereen and kills his Dar, then that's a big piece of the story, which appears to be
Definitely.
his plan, given the last thing he said.
Yeah, it does appear he's going to kill. He plans to kill his star.
Suddenly, I'm on Victarion's side. Come on, Victarion, make it.
Yeah, if he can get himself within Dany's sphere of influence, he can't help but become a fairly influential character in our story.
The only thing is, though, he's no Tyrion. Tyrion could get himself into Daenerys' circle and be an influence on her. Victarion is just a fighter. That's all he is. I mean, that's the thing. I say developing his character, but what has he developed, really? He's mildly psychotic, abusive to women, deeply damaged by his family. You know, that's really the character that's been developed here. There's not much sort of like light in there or complexity, just damage, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about it because, you know, you like you said, you pointed out a lot of really, really negative things about this man and his character. But as far as a character goes, he's kind of a pseudo-likable kind of...
That's what I was going to say. I mean, I list those things, and I'd say, you know, if you do introduce me to this guy, I would run a million miles. But in the context of Game of Thrones, of A Song of Ice and Fire, I'm like, he's all right, actually. Kind of a nice guy.
What I started to think about is that most of the POVs, most of the characters that we have POVs on, once we get into their heads, they're much more relatable and likable than they might have been before we got into their heads, with one major exception.
Oh, wait a second. I think you mean Cersei Lannister.
That is exactly who I mean.
Yeah.
She is just as awful inside her own head as outside of her head. Maybe worse.
but partly, I mean, obviously, partly that is, you know, George Martin's decisions about how to write these characters. But also, is it just human nature on our side? You know, once we're inside their heads, they're us to a certain extent, you know.
Right.
And so we're like, I begin to see, based on your motivations, I see why you're making these decisions. Right. Not necessarily what I would make, but I haven't lived your life.
Yeah, the kind of anti-hero thing where you might be rooting for someone, kind of like The Sopranos. You might be rooting for Tony Soprano because he is the main character in the show, but he's really not a good guy.
No,
you shouldn't be rooting if you weren't following his life, you would not be rooting for him to find success. So that kind of situation.
Yeah. Where exactly are they? They're at the Isle of Cedars. Help me with geography here. Ladies and gentlemen, please consult the show notes for more information about where the Isle of Cedars are. Mackelly, note to us. Remember to put that in the show notes.
Right, yeah. I hope we recall when it's time. So the Isle of Cedars sits right smack dab in the middle of where the Gulf of Grief, which is the southern part of the bay, I guess, and then Slaver's Bay is the northern part of it. And they kind of come in a little bit in the middle, kind of... Mm-hmm. Make little peninsulas there, and there.
Yeah. So the bay is, it's not like a U shape that U pinches in at the opening, so it's almost okay, gotcha.
And right there, splitting the two parts of the bay, is the Isle of Cedars, and it's at least on the map, it looks like a fairly large island. So
okay, so I don't think I realized. I was asking this question because, you know, I was prompted to ask this question, but I thought the Isle of Cedars was further west. I didn't realize he'd got this far east. He's within striking distance now of Slaver's Bay, so he's not too far. But actually, of course, it makes sense to a certain extent because they found Moqorro. They had to be east of where the Celisori Coran came into trouble.
True. Yeah. At least, relatively near the area, you know. I'm sure he drifted some for 10 days. He was out there, but still, had to be somewhere in that area.
Yeah.
But that's why I felt it was important to bring up, because I too, when I pictured it, thought it was more toward the Venarian Peninsula, not all the way up halfway through the bay to get to Meereen.
But actually, now I think about it, there were context clues throughout the chapter because they talked about Ralph the Limper was talking about the fact that the Valyrian winds were sort of blowing at them. So they'd already passed Valyria. So now it makes a lot.
Yes.
Yeah,
and one detail he brings up about the island also, when you think about it, helps with the context because he mentions 2 ruined cities on the island, Velos and Gozai or something like that. And Velos, the southern city, is designed more like the free cities with marble palaces and things like that.
Okay.
But Gozai, on the northern side of the island, is modeled after slave cities with the traditional pyramids that we've been seeing in these slave cities. So that's the one that's on the side of Slaver's Bay, the other one being on the side of the Gulf of Grief.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
That was useful information. Thank you.
Certainly.
So, yeah, again, I mean, a lot of this is about the fleet. The Iron Fleet has definitely seen better days, but it's still a big enough force to make a difference in Slaver's Bay. The thing about it is how will it be welcomed? Because if it's ahead of the Volantene fleet, which it seems to think it is, it seems to think it's ahead of the Volantene fleet.
I took that as well, yes.
Yeah. That it's going to get there and it's going to sort of like meet the sort of the ships that are sort of blockading Meereen.
Right.
Could it cause some damage? Because they're probably not really very alert to danger because the only danger they're worried about is from Meereen, and they know Meereen is basically toothless at this point. So possibly discipline has slackened somewhat on these ships. So could he come in and scupper all these ships very quickly?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, that's his plan. His plan is like a smash and grab type situation.
Yeah.
Before the 300 to 500 fleet Volantene.
Can you imagine his disappointment if he somehow pulls that off? If he breaks through the Yunkai-ish blockade, lands on Meereen, fights his way to the pyramid, kills Hizdar, and then they tell him Daenerys isn't here. She flew off on a dragon. It's like,
he's
come
gonna
on!
be. I agree. Yeah, exactly. How's he going to react? I mean, she could come back before he gets there. We don't know exactly where she is. She flew off. She could fly back, I guess.
Yeah.
But how's he going to react? Would he stay and help her cause and wait for her return?
Yeah, you see, you've made me think, no, that's not his plan. His plan is exactly what I just said, and then carry her off over his shoulder.
Kind of.
Yeah.
But that's not going to be as easy as... maybe he doesn't quite know what Meereen looks like, unless... Yeah. How's he even going to get inside the city, you know?
Well.
I don't think he quite knows what he's in for yet.
Yeah. The other thing is, he could use subterfuge. I mean, if the Yunkai-ish are in league with the Volantenes, which sounded like they might be from what Skahaz was telling us last time, but again, Skahaz is a not necessarily a trustworthy narrator on that, I feel.
True.
But if they were, he could pretend to be, sort of like the vanguard of the Volantene fleet, and then he might be welcomed. And then sort of he lands and feasts with the Yunkai-ish, and then sort of like in the night he wanders off into the city and kills Hizdar and rescues Daenerys.
That's one way he could go about it if he can still get through the gates. Or...
But are the gates locked anymore? Because I thought that, I mean, they were talking about the fact that the gates, they were talking about the fact that the Pale Mare was both inside and outside the city. So are the gates locked against, they're not locked against that anymore because there's no point. Right. But are they still locked against the Yunkai-ish in case the Yunkai-ish decide they want to?
I would think, yes. I would think so. But he could come as an envoy from Westeros.
True.
The Ironborn coming to Dany's aid.
The Yunkai-ish might not like him doing that.
No, but he would like I said, like you said originally, he would have to take them unawares and smash their armada. Blockade. That's the word I was looking for. Blockade.
Yeah. Whatever he's going to do is going to take some careful thought and planning. And actually, I think this is where Moqorro might come in, because Moqorro can see things and perhaps give him some useful advice. And Definitely more than Maester Kerwin, who may actually have been poisoning him.
We'll get to that, but yes.
Well, so yeah, but that would be a nice bit of storytelling, that Moqorro's presence gives him the key to get in there somehow.
And one other detail that didn't come up in this chapter, but we know it exists because of the last Victarion chapter, is that Victarion has the dragon horn, and there are 2 dragons in the city. I'm not sure he'll know what to do with it or with them, because the last guy who blew the horn died of charred lungs.
His dog could blow that for him.
Hey, you want to control those dragons? Just blow this horn. Maybe that's the plan.
I think if I was doing that to his Dar, which honestly, let me just think about that for a second. I would really love to put one of those like party unroller things in the end of the thing, so when he blows it, it goes like. So he looks silly and he dies. That would be perfect.
We'll be right back.
This episode is sponsored by Audible. To get a free audiobook, or 2 if you're an Amazon Prime member, go to our exclusive URL, audibletrial.com/ghostsharrenhal. You can find the link in our show notes. But we weren't that long ago. It was just last chapter that we were in Meereen, and we knew that the Volantene fleet was coming, but we did not factor the Iron Fleet in our calculations for how we thought this all might play out. So now we've got another factor to consider in how this is all going to come together.
And it's interesting that so he stopped in Volantis, and so he actually has first-hand evidence of what's going on there. And the citizens were celebrating their new triarchs, who are determined to plunder Meereen while they can. And they're sending a fleet of between 300 and 500 ships. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. You know what?
All in.
If he's planning to turn back around with Daenerys over his shoulder, he's going to have to run a gauntlet to get out of there, because they're, as you said, the Bay Titans. So as you get through that gap, it'll be hard not to get noticed by 300 to 500 ships.
Right. I don't know how you would get in and out before the Volantene fleet at least gets into the Gulf of Grief.
I wonder if you can sail backwards. Yeah, actually, this is an interesting idea.
Let's hear it.
We've talked before about the time I was water skiing, wakeboarding, and the boat broke down and I had to tow it. And for minutes, I towed it backwards, and ships aren't designed to go backwards.
Right.
After several minutes of hard swimming, I'd moved this thing like 2 inches. But bringing the rope around the front of the boat and swimming, you could drag a boat because it's designed to go in that direction. But here's an argument. These are long ships. Now, the basic idea of a long ship is it's kind of pointy at both ends.
True. Yeah. So
could he face the same way as the Volantines, but sail in the opposite direction?
Slowly.
As they sail past, they think that guy's going really slow,
Slowly slide past them in the other direction.
I know, the trick is they all have to just face the way they're coming, where they're coming from. Yes. To Meereen!
They get around. Just have to blindly hope they got to have one guy who's like calling the shots.
I love it.
Oh well here so clearly the Volantene are against Daenerys. They're actively attempting to kill her. Aside from Beneiro, the high priest of the Lord of Light in Volantis, who is one of the few leaders in the city who support Dany, who sent Moqorro. But when I was thinking about the Triarch election, it dawned on me that, Volantis is known as the first... I said that right. Volantis is known as the first daughter of Old Valyria, and Triarch eligibility requires that you must prove an unbroken line back to Old Valyria.
Yep.
So they've become so dependent on the slave trade that they're willing to go to war against a Targaryen with obvious old Valyrian blood and 3 dragons.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the last, possibly the last true Valyrian dragon rider, and there's no ancestral loyalty here. They want her dead. They can get slavery back.
Yeah. Do you know what's just maybe fallen into place for me, actually? It's just, and this is pure speculation about where things are going, but is it possible that Daenerys could blow the dragon horn without damage?
Oh.
Because she can withstand fire.
Yeah. I hadn't thought of that till you said that, yeah.
Anyone who is a dragon rider can blow that thing. Because you're basically dragon-made flesh sort of thing. You are... So...
Yeah.
If he could get to her with the horn, maybe they could, between them, control the dragons with...
Maybe that's the... It seemed like she was starting to get a little bit of control over Drogon until she flew away, and it seemed she had no control over where they were going.
Again, we don't know that. She might pretend where she landed was where she wanted to go.
Right, yes.
The other person who might conceivably be able to blow the dragon horn is Moqorro. Because he's another... as a adherent of R'hllor, maybe he too is proof against fire.
Yeah, and the description that Victarion gives us is that his skin is like burned black.
Right.
Like it's been burned. So maybe there's some connection there.
Or maybe that's what he's going to do for Victarion. Save his life and then go and tame a dragon for him and give up his life to do it.
Wow. Yeah. That's quite the sword to fall on for this guy here.
Yeah. I've got more to say about Moqorro. So Victarion wonders if Euron has sent him away because he fears Victarion. I think fears isn't the right word. I don't think Euron has many fears.
Right.
But I think he's not above getting rid of his rivals, whether he fears them or not. I think Euron wants Daenerys back. I think he sees that as a path to the Iron Throne. So he hasn't just sent him away to die. But at the same time...
He'd also be sacrificing the Iron Fleet in the process if he just sent him away to die.
Right, that absolutely, yeah. I think he wanted what he wanted, but at the same time he thought, well, if the Iron Fleet comes back with Daenerys but Victarion sinks, that's okay. I can live with that.
Right, yeah. And if he returns with Daenerys, Euron doesn't want the Sea Stone chair anyway. He wants the Iron Throne. So he'd happily give Victarion the Sea Stone chair.
The interesting question becomes, if Victarion has to come back empty-handed because Daenerys is dead or missing or whatever, does Euron say, well, that's not going to cut it? Well, I went on the mission and I did all I could. I want the Sea Stone chair. You go and fight for the Iron Throne without her. She's not coming anyway.
But do I really believe that Euron pretended that he was interested in the Iron Throne and that he needs Dany and her dragons just to get Victarion out of the picture?
No.
And willing to sacrifice the Iron Fleet to do it? I don't believe that.
The only thing about that is, that's you and me talking. But Victarion doesn't know that the dragons are real.
True.
And doesn't know whether the stories of Daenerys are real.
Yeah.
So to him, it's like, have I been sent on this fool's errand for a fairy story? From Victarion's perspective, you can see why he might think it more than we do.
Yes. Yeah, that makes sense. And it's ironic that he won't kill Euron because the gods hate kinslayers, when the Ghost of Highheart saw a vision that suggested that Euron killed their oldest brother, Balon. So there's some irony there.
Yeah. And obviously, part of Victarion's plan here is to turn the tables on Euron by stealing Daenerys as his wife. And we mentioned in the recap of the previous Victarion chapter that that's how that ended. You stole my wife, I'm going to steal yours. So here it is, revenge being served up. Do we know the story in full of how his wife was stolen by Euron? Has that been laid out yet?
Only in bits and pieces.
Right.
I think he had relations with his wife, and then Victarion killed her because of it.
Yes, I know what you just said to be true. I just wasn't sure if that had been covered by the story yet.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think we're
Yeah.
good there.
There you go. It's hard to truly like Victarion.
Yes, it sure is. Yeah. But again, we come back to, like, he plans on making Dany his wife, but he's got to. That's a bigger task than I'm going to smash into Meereen, take her and sail away.
Well, I mean, make her a salt wife, I suppose, but I mean, that's not really a basis of a good, lasting relationship, especially one if you're hoping to win the Iron Throne.
Well, yeah.
You know, which would probably be part and parcel of this. If he believes that she's the ticket to the Iron Throne, as Euron does, then if he takes her, then why settle for the Seastone chair?
Well, that makes sense. Yeah, why not execute Euron's plan entirely?
Yeah.
But, the 53 ships would be great for Daenerys. He might be able to get her to come with him if she were ready to sail for Westeros, but she's clearly not ready to do that.
Well, that's an interesting point. Yes, because you're right. If she was just sitting pretty and bored and frustrated in the Pyramid of Meereen, and he arrived somehow, went down on one knee and said, "Look, I'm here to marry you," and she said, "I've got a husband, but you can just kill him. That's fine." And I've got 53 ships, so me, you, the dragons, all your fighters, let's go back to Westeros.
Right.
That's pretty tempting.
Yeah.
She might chop up his ships for firewood and then sacrifice.
Just ask Grolio how that goes.
She's got history. So, but it always leads to a very complicated view of slavery, because the Iron Islanders totally use slaves. I mean, like we just said, she might become a salt wife to him, but he seems to frown on the idea of people being sold as livestock. So it's different. It's not the same thing.
Yeah, I think it comes down to the exchange of money being the issue.
Yeah.
If you take them through the iron price and not the gold price, I guess that is the difference. Is a thrall and a salt wife they're as close to slaves as you're going to get. Now, I do believe, I meant to look this up, I do believe both of thralls and salt wives' children are born free.
Right. Yeah, and I think I mentioned this before, sort of like in the history of our world, slavery used to be more like that it was kind of like, it was only sort of like in the US slavery that it became more like, the children would also be slaves, everlasting kind of thing. So
okay.
Maester Kerwin, I just wanted to have a quick mention of Maester Kerwin. When I started the chapter, I thought maybe Maester Kerwin was a Iron Islander, but he's not. They got him from the Shield Islands, is where he came from. And so he was basically shanghaied onto this ship and made to be Victarion's Maester. That does give him pretty solid grounds for why he might not want to actually help Victarion. But at the same time, the ministrations that he did would appear to sort of match with what you would expect him to do. He was draining the pus and then putting hot wine on it. It's about the best you can do, really. So it didn't seem like he was actively poisoning him. And plus, given what Victarion was saying about what was happening to Maester Kerwin on the ship, it isn't Victarion I'd be poisoning. It would be just about everybody else.
Right. Can you get some poison into the general water system?
Exactly.
Something like that.
Relentlessly beaten and raped the whole way across the ocean. I'd be like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. I really felt for Kerwin. As I thought about it, he and the Dusky Woman have some commonalities. They're both there against their will. It's not confirmed whether Victarion is having sex with the Dusky Woman, but if so, they're both being raped. And they're both in a situation that is kind of inescapable because they're in the middle of the ocean. They can't run away.
Yeah.
But if he could have just made it to Dany, I really think his fortunes might have turned around, because I think Dany would love access to a trained, Citadel-trained, chained maester. That would be a really big win for her.
Yeah, but the flip side of that is maybe Moqorro's the guy for the job. I mean, he's just come in and showed Maester Kerwin how it's done, basically curing Victarion's damaged hand, which was clearly going to kill him. It was clearly infected to the point of death. And now, you know, I mean, we don't know, but naturally the assumption is it's cured because he's now believing in Moqorro and wants to, you know, and he's ready to head to Meereen.
Well, so then that makes me ask you this question: why did Victarion have Kerwin killed after Moqorro successfully worked on his hand? Was it because he suspected Kerwin of poisoning him? Was it because he failed where Moqorro succeeded? Was it Moqorro who suggested a sacrifice to R'hllor as repayment for his healed hand?
Yes, these things, I think. I mean, one over the other, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, I think all of those things factored into it. Moqorro had proven himself to be more useful. Why keep the useless guy around? He's a mouth to feed. Although, I guess the sailors might be sad about it.
Oh, goodness. Well, so yeah, he thinks to himself after he says slice his throat and throw him into the sea, that Moqorro saw in his flames that the sacrifice would allow favorable winds all the way to Meereen. It's unclear if Moqorro said specifically Kerwin or just said, you need to do a sacrifice. He got up on deck, looked around and went, that guy.
So do you think he was poisoned either by Sir Talbot Serry or by Kerwin? Or do you think it was just like sort of like a disease that got in there? And lack of hygiene on a ship is probably not hard to achieve.
True. Yeah. I find it unlikely that it was the knight.
Yeah, me
that
too.
it was Talbot Serry, because outside of Dorne, you just don't hear of poisoned swords. Yeah. Now, the Ironborn were raiding his land and killing and raping and stealing from his people because he was the heir to South Shield. So maybe he thought, I'm going to take as many of these people out as I can, and I'm going to use poison.
I'm peeing on my sword before I start swinging.
Right.
Yeah,
I think there's a slightly higher likelihood that it was Kerwin, but if so, he was absolutely sacrificing his life because he was going to die at some point. Yeah. Maybe he realized he wasn't going to survive regardless, and he wanted to take out the captain in hopes that the fleet would never make it back to the Reach because he was a maester on Green Shield.
But honestly, he was armed with a sharp thing. I mean, was he slowly poking the pussy hand with a poisoned knife? Stick it in the guy's throat while you're there.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess if you're planning on not surviving, you could go that route. Yeah. Now, could it be Euron who somehow poisoned that wound before Victarion
All right, brother,
left?
high five.
Yeah. Moqorro does speak of those black tentacles that are making Victarion dance.
Yes.
So maybe...
Which you and I both interpreted as Euron's pulling the strings on on Victarion, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So maybe those black strings include poisoning.
Yeah.
But the final person that I want to bring up is, could it be the Dusky Woman's work? Somehow, some way. She's a gift of Euron, and Victarion thinks that all gifts from Euron are poisoned, possibly literally here.
Interesting.
In this case.
I hadn't really thought of her. She seemed sort of like to have accepted her fate, but yeah, you're right. That again, both she and Kerwin might do it the subtle way to try and survive his death, but
right, yeah. She certainly has plenty of opportunity, and I'm not sure. I mean, maybe she would do it because she's a slave and likely being raped regularly. But with her and Euron, if somehow Euron set her up to this, I don't know what the point would be of killing Victarion when his objective is to return with Dany and the dragons.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah. One last thing about Victarion's character actually is that he dislikes and distrusts laughter. He can't determine whether people are joking, and that's I don't know. I don't know what to think of that. Is that a sign that he's not very smart? Is it a sign that maybe is he perhaps slightly autistic? That's something that they struggle with. I don't know what it means, but that was one thing that came up in this chapter, which is it's probably why he's a good fighter, because you can be single-minded as a fighter and you don't have to sort of think about the nuances of things, and that maybe is where he's lacking some part that others have.
He thinks about the fact that Euron mocked him when they were kids, and that's part of why he's sensitive about it now. Yeah. And I was just thinking about how Euron has done quite a number on his little brothers, because Euron has this awful childhood memory, at least one, probably more than one, but one specific one, and seems to be involving Euron, because it came up in the chapter when he was thinking about Euron. It has something to do with the screeching gate hinge, but it's so terrible that he forces himself to not think about it whenever it comes up, so we don't know beyond that what it's in reference to. But
he's got a lot to answer for.
Yeah, he certainly scarred his younger siblings.
Yeah. So one thing I was curious about, Moqorro, did he know that he was going to get to Meereen after all? And like had the flames told him, okay, so
here's how this is going to play out.
Here's how this is going to work. You're going to get with me here. Essentially, technically not shipwrecked. The ship survived, but you got swept overboard. So, to all intents and purposes, you got shipwrecked. Huge tempest. It's a miracle that you survived this at all. And then you're going to be taken up by a kraken. Wait, now?
What? Literally?
This is what you want from me? This is what I'm supposed to do? But don't worry, he'll spit you out in Meereen. Like, okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's a lot of faith he's put in Bonero.
Yeah. I would definitely be looking over the shoulder of Bonero into those flames. Like,
wait, you sure? I'm not sure that's what I'm saying.
Just looks like flames to me.
So he's introduced as a wizard because he knew things that nobody told him, like they're headed for Slaver's Bay, Victarion is waiting on the Isle of Cedars, and that Victarion will die if Moqorro was not brought to him. Now, if we look at those one at a time, headed to Slaver's Bay, it's not that
the whole
big.
World is headed to Slaver's Bay.
Probably most of the ships sailing east on the Sunset Sea or on the Summer Sea are headed to Slaver's Bay either for the war or for the newly reopened slave trade. So not a major prognostication there. Victarion waiting on the Isle of Cedars is a bit of a step up. He'd need to know that Victarion is the captain of the Iron Fleet and that he's not here with the rest of the fleet. And then, then I was thinking about is Moqorro better at interpreting the flames than Melisandre? Because Melisandre couldn't tell Alice Karstark from Arya Stark, and Moqorro identified a man he'd never seen before that looks a whole lot like every other Ironborn man in the fleet. Maybe he saw the Kraken sigil. Maybe he paired that, knowing Victarion is the captain of the Lord Captain of the Iron Fleet.
The thing about predicting the Isle of Cedars is that I think the Vole, the captain of the Grief, who thought Moqorro was the wizard, knew that was the rendezvous point. That's where they planned to rendezvous. So that would be instantly compelling, because it's not like, okay, let's sail there and find out if we find him. It was like, wait a minute, that is where we're going. So that was,
you know that
right? Exactly. That's the one that probably kept him alive. But,
although what kept him alive here in this chapter is knowing about the injured hand, which is
for sure,
pretty impressive. He's saving the hand, we assume anyway. But most of it, at least up to the hand part, was all clearly seen before Moqorro left Volantis. Or because, like you said, he was on that ship knowing it was never going to make it to Meereen, and then had to have gotten on the ship willingly, knowing that it wasn't going to make it to Meereen. So he must have seen some plan ahead of time.
But one more time, this is R'hllor proving himself to be the most impactful god in this whole story. Yet again, he's bringing home the bacon.
I had the same thought. Where was the Drowned God? Drowned God couldn't be moved to action here.
No. What does the Drowned God do? I mean, basically, the Drowned God is just resuscitating people who have otherwise drowned. We can do that here, you know?
Yeah, right.
The seven, honestly, I think the seven all point at each other and say, well, it's your job. No, it's your job, you know, and none of them do anything.
They're like that Spider-Man meme of pointing at all the other Spider-Men. But speaking of R'hllor and what happens in the cabin, the men hear wild, deep laughter from the cabin, and then followed by a strange, high wailing song in what Kerwin says is High Valyrian. Now, we know Victarion literally says at the end of the chapter, I laugh at pain. So it could literally been him laughing to prevent crying, maybe, because Moqorro said this is going to be the most painful thing you've ever experienced. But who's singing the high wailing in High Valyrian? None of the... Victarion doesn't know High Valyrian. The Dusky Woman can't speak, let alone sing. Now, it could have been her if it was just high wailing. She could still wail without a tongue, but
if you don't speak, if you're not very fluent in Valyrian, it might just sound like Valyrian.
Right, yeah. And Moqorro, his voice is described as so deep that it sounds like it's coming from the bottom of the sea. So who was doing the high Valyrian high wailing? Unless maybe it was like Mirri Mazdor with Drogo, that they weren't alone in that cabin.
Were conjuring the same thing in my head too. Well done. Yeah, that is an interesting question. I hadn't really thought about it, but a little dark magic going on.
Yeah, I guess so. It caused the monkeys to jump when the High Valyrian wailing song began.
Yeah.
And do you find it odd that the Dusky Woman hissed when she saw Moqorro?
Moqorro, yes.
Yeah. She could have just been startled by his size and an unexpected stranger walking into the cabin, but...
Yeah, it feels like she wouldn't be the one to join in the singing as he started to, it feels like she had animus towards him rather than God, he's going to make me sing, isn't he?
She's a mysterious one.
Mm.
I looked it up because, all we know is that she's a dusky woman. She could possibly be Nathi because they're described as having dusky skin.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we don't know. We don't even really know what their relationship is. He keeps her in the cabin. He thinks to himself in the chapter he doesn't want Euron's leavings, and he knows that Euron has had her. But he hasn't killed her, and he also thinks all Euron's gifts are poisoned. Yeah. So it's really complicated and tangled in that relationship there.
Yep. Well, with that thought, let us move on to spoilers. Remember, if you join the higher levels of the Buy Me a Coffee Sustainer tiers, you get the spoilers. You can try any tier for a week and see what you think. All right, thank you for the spoilers. Excellent as always. How about some background?
Okay, well, Victarion is the Lord Captain of the Iron Fleet. And the fleet is similar to the Iron Throne's royal fleet in that it's not owned by a house, like, say, the Red Wine Fleet, for example, but by the Seastone Chair and the Greyjoys of Pike presently. The concept of such a fleet was the brainchild of Victarion's older brother and Theon's father, Balon Greyjoy. When Balon's father, Quellin, died in Robert's Rebellion, Balon ascended to the Seastone Chair. But unlike his father, who wanted closer ties to the Seven Kingdoms, Balon wanted independence for the Iron Islands. And one of his first decrees as Lord was to build a fleet of ships unlike anything the islands had seen. He wanted the ships to be larger than the standard Ironborn longship, so as to contend with the galleys of the Greenlands. He wanted the ships armed with Scorpions and Spitfires as well. And over the next 5 years, the 100 ships of the Iron Fleet was constructed to Balon's specifications. A year later, he proclaimed himself King of the Iron Islands. And as Victarion thinks about in this chapter, Balon's first move as King of the Iron Islands was to secure supremacy on the Sunset Sea, At Balon's command, Euron planned a sneak attack of the Lannisport fleet while it sat at anchor, and as Lord Captain of the new Iron Fleet, Victarion threw the first torch into Tywin Lannister's flagship, thus beginning Greyjoy's rebellion.
Very nice.
Yes.
Comparison with the television show, Victarion is essentially completely dropped. He is. You could point him out at the King's Moot, but he doesn't have a line as far as I remember.
Oh, really?
A Greyjoy contingent does meet up with Daenerys, but much later in the show, and to give you the names of who it is would be a spoiler, so I shan't.
Sure. Yeah.
But I will say, just we're not getting Euron here, but I was thinking about Euron just recently because the actor whose name, I'm going to have to look this up because I can never remember his name. The actor who plays Euron is Pilu Asbæk, is his name. Pilu Asbæk.
Okay.
He's Danish. He's in a show on Apple called Foundation, based on the Asimov novels.
I've heard of it. Yeah, I've not watched it. I know it exists.
I've been watching it and I quite enjoy it. He plays Euron Greyjoy in that show too. It's almost the same character.
Does he have one eye?
It's really weird how similar it is. Actually, he's sort of like
typecast.
He's an outsider who comes in and has special powers and disrupts things, and it's like, hey, look at you being the same thing. So yeah.
All right.
Pedantry Corner. I didn't see anything this time. Good news.
No, me either. I almost brought up the fact that Victarion mentions that the boars on the Isle of Cedars aren't afraid of men, but they're learning with the Ironborn being there. And just the size of it and its location, I just thought, there's no way that men don't stop on that island. But maybe they don't. Maybe they're close enough to shore of, the Essos shore that they don't.
That's a very good point, actually. That is a reasonable point because anyone who does stop would probably hunt the pig because there's pig there and humans eat pig,
Especially if you're sailing out of the bay, you might want to stock up before you do.
Or you're sailing in, you might be hungry by this point because you've come a long way.
Yeah.
Either way, I would think the boars would be like, ship, and they would hightail it away. I can't imagine it would just be a few days of the Iron Islanders to convince them of this. Yes, it's a good point. I think that's solid pedantry. Well done.
Well, then we'll go with it.
Yeah. News and notes. It says big news here, people. Let Mackelly tell you what the big news is.
We've got big news coming out of the George Martin camp. The A Song of Ice and Fire content we all have been waiting years for will finally debut in 2026.
Oh my god.
We've gotten wind that it's been announced this winter that the story of the Great Tourney at Harrenhal will be played out on stage by the Royal Shakespeare Company.
Think you're funny.
Was that cruel? Actually, this is exciting. The play will be called Game of Thrones, The Mad King, I guess because they needed to fit Game of Thrones in there, just so people would be able to know what to associate it with.
I hear what you're saying, yeah.
It will be performed this summer at the Royal Shakespeare Theatre, and priority tickets will go on sale on April 14th. As you might expect, George Martin is very excited, and he paints an amazing picture of what those in attendance will be in store for. It's very exciting, actually.
I gotta say, the Royal Shakespeare Company, best in the business, yeah, and Royal Shakespeare Theatre, it's going to be an amazing thing. I'm worried about the jousting. I'm worried about the jousting looking a lot like Tyrion and Penny.
Yeah, it will be a lot of jousting. That would be,
exactly.
Yeah, that'll be tough to pull off on stage.
That's what I'm thinking.
Okay. Hadn't thought about that.
We'll see.
Yeah.
And Mackelly, we've got a sustainer call coming up this Tuesday.
Thank you for the reminder.
So, if you're an invited sustainer listening on Monday, it's tomorrow. So, mark your calendars.
Yes. Mark your calendars, everybody.
Okay. All right, let's conclude this one before I take any more pelters. Victarion is saved by R'hllor, which is great news for Victarion. Possibly troubling news for the rest of the world. It's an unholy alliance between the Greyjoys and R'hllor, I feel.
Yeah.
I mean, the Greyjoys were looking for an alliance with the Targaryens, which was also potentially unholy, but this one could be even worse.
Right. Has Victarion become another convert?
Mm-hmm.
He allowed Moqorro to operate, killed Kerwin for favorable winds because Moqorro said so. And if this is all true, how are his men going to react if he starts talking about the night is dark and full of terrors instead of about the drowned god?
I gotta say, it would take a lot to convert me to a specific religion, but saving my life, that's probably the one.
Yeah, it's up there for
Quite
sure.
Quite compelling, yeah.
Yes.
I'm rather self-centered, and if that's what the religion will do for me, I might buy on to that one.
Yeah.
And therefore, Moqorro lives to fight another day, and that's going to be interesting too, because he's a character who could make a difference to Victarion in his pursuits, whatever they may be.
Yeah, we've got another passenger of the Stinky Steward headed for Meereen.
Mm-hmm.
Might
Beware
this be the perfumed seneschal to beware of?
And we know now for a fact that it wasn't all lies that Skahaz was telling Barristan Selmy. The Volantene fleet is on their way to Meereen. And ideally for Victarion, he needs to beat them there, because otherwise, I mean, just by numbers, it would take him weeks to get to Meereen, just weaving through all the boats he's going to get past.
Yes. And when he gets there, his prize is not home yet, anyway.
Yeah, right.
Not sure he can sail away with her as easily as he thinks, although I like your plan of sailing backward but facing forward.
I keep envisioning it. They're all just sitting there with smiles on their faces, like going backwards, yeah, but pointing forwards.
Well, maybe Moqorro can create a shadow assassin or use his powers to burn the fleet, the Volantene fleet, or something.
From what orifice do you think this would emanate?
I don't know. That's something he's gonna have to think about.
Well, I think we're all going to be thinking about that now. All right, next week we have another survivor of the Silasori Coran. This time Tyrion Lannister. We love Tyrion chapters.
Survived the lion attack, or the aborted lion attack, anyway.
Yes, to be replaced by a dragon. Sort of,
yes.
Out of the frying pan. There's 3 ways that you can help us. You could leave us a 5-star rating and possibly a review. You could buy us a cup of Arbor Gold at buymeacoffee.com/ghostharrenhal. There you can join us at the various sustainer levels. There's a tier to match your budget and interest. You can try any of them free for a week. Or you can make a donation directly to our cause at our website, ghostsofharrenhal.buzzsprout.com.
And if you're looking for more ways to interact with us, well, one thing you could do is you could send us a text. The link is at the top of every episode's show notes. Please just keep in mind we have no means of responding, but we do very much enjoy reading them. And if you're interested in keeping up on the latest Ghosts of Harrenhal news and developments, well, I suggest you go check us out on our social media. You can follow us on Twitter at Ghost Harrenhal. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Discord, and YouTube, which I did post the picture of us being in the butt crack of the storm, which I think was well received.
Yes, I saw it. Yeah, it was. I'd never seen that before. It really is quite impressive how little snow we managed to get all around us.
Right. Yeah. Safety in the butt crack, I guess.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.